Hey guys, it's Nadia from LiaDiaDesigns, Designs, and I'm back with another tutorial. Today I'm using a mold from Molds and Shapes. I actually purchased this from them just because I love the shape of these coasters. They have that kind of Moroccan vibe. It's called their Fantasy Coaster mold, but I actually am calling it my Blossom Coasters because they look like flowers and I really like the look of them. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are adding our base layer as we do in most of my tutorials. And we're only adding about an ounce of resin into each one of these molds because we only want to fill it about a third of the way full so that we leave room for our design and then a top coat over top of that. And we're going to add our heat to just kind of get the bubbles out. Oh, and also I want to let you guys know that I'm using Counterculture's artist resin, but it's the thin viscosity resin that I'm using. So I know a lot of you guys have been asking which of their resins I'm using. I do use their medium and their artist, the thicker one as well for some projects, but this one I'm using the thin. So we'll let this cure overnight and then we'll be ready to start our designs. It's the next day and we're ready to add our design. And if you've watched my previous tutorials for my Ultra Glam technique, you'll recognize what I'm doing here. So I just mixed up my DuraClear gloss varnish with some of the glitter that I'm using, which is gold holographic shards from Lrisy. And I absolutely love this glitter. I know some people find it a little bit more difficult to work with, but I actually really love it and I don't mind fiddling with it a bit to kind of get the look that I'm looking for. Just the sparkle of this glitter, just because it's the shard, so it's irregular and they don't kind of have a consistent look, so it just gives off so much more sparkle than a lot of other glitters that I use. But again, you just kind of pick what you like and you go with it. It tends to look nice. This design, the Ultra Glam design, looks nice in many different ways, as many of you have probably seen. As people are trying them out, almost every design I've seen of this has turned out really well, no matter which glitter people are using. Just this Lrisy glitter is my preference. So feel free to use what you like and what you feel comfortable with. I use a brush as well, and I know some other people don't. So whatever works for you, go for it and just enjoy the process. So just going to finish up the gold here now, and then I'm going to add in a little bit of pink just because I like having a bit of a transition in my gradient here. So otherwise it just looks a little bit heavy when it's all just gold. It just allows us to get a little bit of a different color when we're looking at the design. For my second design, I wanted to show you guys my starburst or firework technique. And this one is a little bit different, where we actually put the glitter in the center and we actually try to move it outwards and kind of like an explosion or starburst pattern. This one's a little bit more challenging than the first one, just because you kind of have to have these spikes move around in a circle from the center, and they need to be really defined or you're not really going to get that look that we need. So this one does take a little bit, even a little bit more fiddling than the original design. So definitely kind of work with the first design until you feel comfortable with the technique, and then work towards the second one, just because it probably takes almost a third more time for me to do the fireworks design than it takes me to do the original. So just keep that in mind and don't get frustrated. Like I said, just keep practicing and fiddling with it. That's one of the reasons why I use the gloss varnish instead of using resin, is because it gives you way more working time. You don't feel rushed in any kind of way. So like I said, we're just going to go ahead and finish up those spikes, and you can start seeing how the pattern really starts to emerge as you kind of play with it here. So once we're done with this, then I'm again going to add the pink glitter a little bit in the center. I'm not going to bring it out too far, but just again to have a bit of a gradient in the middle. And once we get that done, I'm actually going to add something a little bit different to this one as well. So as you can see, I'm adding a little bit of just clear varnish. I didn't let this dry. I'm just adding it kind of on top as an extra bit of glue, I guess. And I'm using these really cool holographic dots from Lrisy. And They just, again, have an amazing sparkle, and it just brings your eye in the center of this. And it almost looks like a flower in the middle of the starburst. So I really like how this looks, especially again in this mold. I think it works really well. So we'll just get that on both of these. And then once we're done with this, then we're going to let these coasters dry. And it does take sometimes upwards of 6 to 8 hours just because the glitter and the varnish is thicker, and we need to make sure it's fully dry before we add our top coat. We're ready to add our top coat. So again, I'm using the CC DIY Thin Viscosity Artist Resin. And again, we're adding about 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces per coaster to top coat these. And just pour it on top, and then we'll get the bubbles out. And once we do that, we'll let that cure overnight so that we can unmold them in the morning. All right, let's unmold them, and look how pretty and sparkly once again these look, and the shape of this mold. My goodness, I can't even tell you how much I love it. It's just so pretty. So I did decide to add a doming top coat to these coasters just for that extra bit of shine. I love the finish of it. And look at the edges of this mold, the little ridges there. It's just so cool. So we're ready to add our gold, and I use these products here. They're from Testors, and it's like a gold enamel. So I've added a bit of it to the bottom of this cup, and now we need to prep for painting the edges. So the first thing that I need to do is I like to wipe the area that I'm going to be painting, at least on the surface, with some rubbing alcohol. This just gets rid of any of my fingerprints and oils that may have gotten on the coasters when I was unmolding them and adding the top coat. So just give those a bit of a wipe, and then we'll be ready to start painting. So now we're ready to paint, and I just like adding a bit of an outline around the top edge of the coaster. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. You could just do the sides if you prefer. I just like the look of having that little bit of gold edge around the top as well. So I'll just finish this up here. And I really like this enamel paint because I don't feel that I need to add another layer of resin or varnish or anything to protect it. It's similar to how we hard cure resin. You have to wait 30 days. The enamel is kind of similar. So, all right, so there we go with that. And I just like to leave this sitting up on a cup just in case there's any drips or anything, so it's not going to be sitting on the table. And we'll do the same thing with the other design as well. So yeah, so again, with the enamel paint, I find after 30 days, it's kind of hard cured. So you're not really going to have any, or at least not too many issues with scratches or rubbing off or anything. I mean, with time it may happen, as it does with anything, things will wear over time. But I find that, adding that extra bit of a top coat to it isn't really necessary for this type of paint as it is with other types. So, and now this one's done. So there we go. We'll leave that to sit as well and get the rest of them done. And now that we have all the edges done, the top of the edges, now we're going to do the sides. And just look how this paint just brings out those ridges. And now you can really notice them. And again, that's one thing I love about this mold is this little bit of extra detail that's on it. And we're all done, and I am so incredibly happy with how these turned out. I love the shape of this mold. I love how these designs turned out on them, how they look like flowers, and even this color is just amazing, and just everything about it. I love it. So I hope you guys do too, and if you did, don't forget to let me know in the comments and like and subscribe. Thanks guys, take care, bye.